Everything that was held together by silence is about to explode. One decision, one violent moment, and one firing have pushed Landman to the edge. Season 2, Episode 10 is not about damage control anymore. It is about consequences. And no one walks away clean. Episode 10 opens under the weight of everything that went wrong at once. There is no reset. No calm before the storm. The firing of Tommy is not just a business move anymore. It is a shockwave moving through every character connected to Mtex. What Cammy saw as a bold step toward her future now looks like a reckless cut, made without understanding what was holding the company together. Tommy was not just managing risk, he was containing chaos. And now that barrier is gone. Tommy himself is forced into a silence that feels heavier than any argument he ever had with Cammy. For the first time, he has no authority, no leverage, and no clear next move. His identity has always been tied to being the man who knew how to keep things from collapsing. Now he is standing outside the machine he helped build, watching it run without him. The real fear is not just unemployment. It is the realization that everything he warned about might happen, and he will have to watch it unfold powerless. At home, the reality starts to sink in fast. The comfort Angela and Aninslee have been living in was built on an assumption that the money would never stop. That illusion cracks almost immediately. Tommy's firing turns small habits into serious problems. Every expense suddenly matters. Every decision feels exposed. Angela, who has always believed money could solve anything, is faced with a future she cannot control with a credit card. And that scares her more than she is willing to admit. The tension between Tommy and Angela is no longer subtle. Love exists, but it is buried under resentment, disappointment, and unspoken blame. Angela does not see Tommy as a victim of Cammy's ambition. She sees him as someone who failed to protect the life she was enjoying. That emotional gap grows wider with every passing moment, and it becomes clear that this marriage is entering dangerous territory. Meanwhile, at Mtex, Cammy is riding the high of her decision, but the confidence feels forced. She is surrounded by people who agree with her, not because they believe in the plan, but because they are afraid to challenge her. Without Tommy in the room, no one is asking the hard questions anymore. The offshore drilling project moves forward, but the excitement feels hollow. The risk is no longer calculated. It is ignored. There is also the quiet presence of Dan, watching everything unfold. He sees opportunity where others see confusion. Tommy's exit creates space, and Dan has been waiting all season for space like this. His interest in the oil business no longer feels theoretical. It feels personal and dangerous. But the most unsettling tension does not come from boardrooms or bank accounts. It comes from Cooper. What he did to protect Ariana cannot be undone. The violence was instinctive, emotional, and brutal. Now the adrenaline is gone, and what remains is fear. Sirens mean consequences. Statements. Charges. A permanent mark on his record. Cooper has spent the season proving himself as a leader, only to risk destroying his future in one uncontrollable moment. As episode 10 begins, Landman makes one thing clear. This is not a story about fixing mistakes. It is about living with them. And the cost is about to be higher than anyone expected. As episode 10 continues, the pressure does not ease for a single character. Instead, it tightens quietly and relentlessly. Cooper's situation becomes the center of whispered conversations and official concern. What started as an act of protection is now being examined through a colder lens. The question is no longer whether he meant to save Ariana, but whether his response crossed into something unforgivable. Witnesses talk. Reports are written. And suddenly, Cooper's future at Mtex feels fragile in a way it never has before. Cammy watches this unfold with a calculating eye. With Tommy gone, she is no longer buffered from the consequences of her leadership. Cooper's legal trouble is not just a personal issue, it is a liability. A risk she cannot afford while pushing the offshore project forward. The irony is impossible to ignore. She fired Tommy for being too cautious, yet now she is surrounded by risks she no longer knows how to manage. Cooper, once a symbol of the company's future, now represents uncertainty. And Cammy has never been patient with uncertainty. Ariana is pulled into the storm despite wanting nothing more than distance from it. The trauma of the assault has not faded, and now it is tangled with guilt. She knows Cooper acted for her, but she also knows his life may change forever because of it. Her job at the Patch Cafe suddenly feels unstable. Management worries about attention, about headlines, about being connected to violence. Even when she is not at work, the fear follows her. Safety now feels temporary, borrowed, and fragile. Back at home, Tommy tries to hold on to dignity while everything familiar slips away. He keeps telling himself that this is temporary, that experience still matters, that someone will realize the mistake that was made. But the silence from Mtex grows louder by the day. No calls. No apologies. No reconsideration. What hurts most is not being fired, but being discarded as if he was already irrelevant. Angela's response to this new reality is complicated. She does not explode. She does not scream. Instead, she grows distant, practical, cold. She begins to calculate what life looks like without the financial safety she depended on. Her support feels conditional now, wrapped in frustration and disappointment. The unspoken truth hangs between them. This is not the life she signed up for. And if it cannot be restored, she may look for a way out rather than a way through. Aninslee, for once, senses that something is wrong even if no one says it out loud. The comfort she was promised feels less secure. The easy solutions are gone. The tension in the house is constant, and it changes her. She becomes quieter, more observant, realizing that stability is not guaranteed just because adults say it is. At the drilling operation, cracks begin to show. Small issues that Tommy would have anticipated are brushed aside. Delays are reframed as minor setbacks. Warnings are softened to maintain morale. Cammy insists everything is under control, but control now relies on optimism rather than expertise. The crew follows orders, but trust is thinner than it has ever been. And then there is Dan. Always watching. Always listening. He positions himself closer to Cammy, offering agreement instead of resistance. He feeds her confidence while quietly advancing his own interests. His ambition, once subtle, now feels sharp. He does not want to help stabilize Mtex. He wants to shape it. By the midpoint of episode 10, Landman shifts from anticipation to inevitability. Every character is boxed in by choices already made. There is no clean solution waiting ahead. Only reactions. Only fallout. And the sense that whatever breaks next will not be easy to repair. By the time episode 10 reaches its final stretch, the tension is no longer simmering. It is visible in every conversation, every pause, every look that lasts a second too long. The story stops asking whether things will go wrong and starts showing how far they already have. The characters are no longer moving forward with confidence, but with fear disguised as determination. Cooper's situation worsens as reality fully sets in. The legal process is slow, impersonal, and unforgiving. What he thought would be a clear case of self-defense becomes complicated by the severity of his actions. The possibility of charges hangs over him, and with it, the threat of losing everything he has worked toward. His job, his reputation, and his plans for a future with Ariana and Miguel all feel suddenly fragile. The leadership moment that once defined him now threatens to undo him. Cammy begins to distance herself. Not emotionally, but strategically. She speaks in careful language, avoids commitment, and reframes her expectations. The shift is subtle but unmistakable. Cooper is no longer protected by loyalty or potential. He is measured by risk. And risk is something Cammy no longer tolerates unless it serves her vision. The same logic that removed Tommy now circles Cooper, waiting for the right moment. Tommy, meanwhile, finds himself caught between anger and clarity. Watching events unfold from the outside confirms everything he feared. The offshore project is moving too fast, with too little oversight. Decisions are being made to preserve appearances rather than ensure safety. He knows where this leads because he has seen it before. The most painful part is knowing that when things finally break, his absence will be blamed rather than his warnings remembered. Angela reaches a breaking point of her own. The lifestyle she maintained is no longer sustainable, and denial stops working. Her frustration turns inward then outward. Conversations with Tommy grow sharper, more transactional. Love still exists, but it is buried under resentment and fear. She does not want to start over. She does not want to downsize her life. And she does not want to admit how dependent she became on a future that no longer exists. Aninslee becomes a quiet mirror of that tension. She feels the instability without fully understanding it. The certainty she once relied on fades, replaced by unease. For the first time, she sees her parents not as providers, but as people who are unsure and afraid. That realization changes her, even if she cannot name it yet. At Mtex, the atmosphere shifts. The celebration around the offshore project fades into nervous routine. Small issues stack up. Communication becomes strained. Trust erodes. Cammy insists on progress, but the confidence in her voice sounds rehearsed. The absence of Tommy's steady presence becomes impossible to ignore, even for those who supported his removal. Dan steps further into the gap. His involvement grows bolder, his influence more visible. He encourages speed. He minimizes risk. He reinforces Cammy's belief that hesitation is weakness. But there is something unsettling in how easily he adapts to chaos. It becomes clear that he is not afraid of failure. He is waiting for it. Ariana, caught between gratitude and guilt, begins to pull away emotionally. She cares for Cooper, but the weight of his situation presses on her. The trauma of the attack lingers, and now it is tied to fear of the future. She wants safety, stability, and peace. Cooper's world no longer offers any of those things. As episode 10 moves closer to its end, Landman makes a quiet promise to the audience. The fallout has only begun. Lines have been crossed. Trust has been broken. And the consequences that are coming will not be contained to one person or one decision. Everything is connected now. And when it finally collapses, no one will be able to say they didn't see it coming. The final moments of episode 10 do not offer closure. They offer warning. Everything feels suspended, as if the entire world of Landman is holding its breath. The season finale does not resolve the chaos, it locks it in place, daring the characters to face what they have created. Tommy stands at a crossroads, forced to confront the possibility that walking away may no longer be an option. As the offshore project begins to show signs of instability, his absence becomes more than symbolic. It becomes dangerous. The knowledge he carries is still needed, whether Cammy wants to admit it or not. And the question shifts from whether he will return to what it will cost him if he does. Pride, trust, and self-respect are all on the line. Cammy's confidence begins to crack under the weight of responsibility. Without Tommy as a shield, every decision points directly back to her. The adrenaline that once fueled her now feels unstable, almost reckless. She has built her vision on speed and risk, but the consequences of that approach are no longer abstract. They are immediate, and when the pressure mounts, it becomes clear that leadership without restraint may be her greatest weakness. Cooper reaches the most uncertain moment of his life. The threat of charges hangs over him, and his place at Mtex feels increasingly temporary. What once looked like a future filled with promise now feels like a house built on sand. His instinct to protect may define who he is, but it may also be the reason everything he loves slips away. The tragedy is not that he acted, but that the system may not care why he did. Ariana is left to decide what survival looks like for her. Staying means accepting instability, danger, and constant fear. Leaving means abandoning someone who stood up for her when no one else did. Her silence in these moments speaks louder than any argument. Love, in this world, is not enough on its own. Angela faces a truth she has avoided all season. Money did not just support her lifestyle, it shaped her identity. Without it, she is forced to confront what she values more: comfort or loyalty. The distance between her and Tommy feels wider than ever, and the future of their marriage hangs in the balance. This is not about one firing. It is about what happens when security disappears. Dan remains the quiet threat in the background. As instability grows, so does his influence. He thrives in uncertainty, in moments when others hesitate. His ambition no longer hides behind patience. It waits for collapse. And when it comes, he will be ready. The season ends not with an explosion, but with inevitability. The offshore project stands on the brink. Relationships are fractured. Careers are endangered. And the choices made in episode 10 set a path that cannot be undone. Landman closes season 2 by reminding us of its central truth. In this world, risk is never just about business. It is about people. And when ambition outweighs caution, the cost is always higher than expected. The question is no longer who will fall. It is who will still be standing when the dust settles.